Marjorie Taylor Greene went on Tucker Carlson because guess what? They're doing the same stuff that they've been doing to people of color, to whites now. Oh my God. Let's take a listen.
Are still being held in horrible conditions.
They're talking about the insurrectionists who are being held in deplorable, horrible conditions in prison. Can you believe that prison isn't a fun place?
Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia is one of the very few members of Congress who cares at all. She just led a delegation to the jail where many of these defendants are now being held. She joins us now with a report on what she saw. Congresswoman, thank you so much for coming on, for doing this. So what was your impression of the conditions that these protesters are being held in?
Well, I think what we all saw was a big cover-up. You see, I've been in that jail before, and I know what it looks like. I was there back in late 2021 when myself, along with Louis Gohmert, were the only ones to go into the jail and see the conditions that the pretrial January 6th defendants were being held in, and it was so horrific.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I like how she calls them pre-trial January 6th defendants. And what they are is insurrectionists.
That we wrote a report called Unusually Cruel that's still on my congressional website today. Well, we finally were allowed to go back in after demanding another visit from the mayor's office for over a year. We went in with the oversight committee, and what we found is they had scrubbed the jail clean, cleaned up all the mold, and freshly painted the entire area so that it looked a lot better. Well, I got to tell you, Tucker, it fooled the Democrats, Robert Garcia and Jasmine Crockett, that came along with us, because they praised the jail after we left in their press conferences and praised the warden. But I guess since they're so new in Congress, they didn't know the history that this jail has and how many Democrats in Washington don't like the jail either.
It's way too many things that she's saying that's making my head explode. First of all, aren't you new in Congress? And didn't you want them to clean it up? Like, isn't mold and black mold, doesn't that create a deplorable condition? And guess what? You know what they wouldn't have cleaned it up for? You know what they never cleaned it up for? The prisoners that they held before. And you know who's been complaining about a condition for prisoners? The left. That's who complains about the conditions for prisoners, about the money that is being made off of them, about private prisons, about lack of health care provided to these people. But oh my God, when they're doing it to the white insurrectionists, would-be fascists, let's get on Tucker Carlson and scream about it, and then Tucker can pretend he didn't know anything about any of this for his whole life, and then at the end, they both get to pretend that they're man and woman of the people in jail.
I mean, the fact that anybody is being held without even a trial yet, over 2 years later, is shocking to the conscience. Did the Democrats in the delegation seem stunned by that? It doesn't seem.
I'm sorry. Are they? I'm sorry to interrupt. It's so hard not to interrupt Fox News with sanity. Did you know that in Rikers Island, it is a regular happenstance that people get held for years? There was even a case recently where someone was held in solitary for months and years for having a backpack or something, and they killed themselves at some point when they got let out because of the mental stress of it. And they didn't even do anything. It was just, this happens all the time. It's wonderful that you're finally taking up the cause now that it's happening to your people, the insurrectionists.
Like an American thing to do.
No, they didn't care at all. As a matter of fact, they criticize us for talking with the pretrial January 6th defendants and being friendly with them. But you know what? We would have talked to the other inmates and defendants that were in the jail in other areas if they had given us a chance. You see, it was interesting. The director and all of the employees at the jail, they wouldn't let us talk to anyone else in the jail, only the pretrial January 6th defendants, which I found very disturbing because I want oversight of the entire jail. But other things that I found that really bothered me, and I think it should bother everyone, and we as Republicans have to do something about it, is the medical director in the jail showed off and bragged about all of her medical services and treatments that they can provide in the jail. But when we talked to the pretrial January 6th defendants, they told us they were receiving no medical treatments for problems and health problems that they have. Even one man in there with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He has cancer, and he doesn't get any treatment there.
It's really an atrocity. I don't think you need to be a Republican or a Democrat to care about civil liberties and human rights, and really appreciate your calling attention to this consistently over the years. Marjorie Taylor Greene, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Has she, over the years, she's only been around for like very short period of time, thank God. And hopefully that'll be done soon if people come to their senses and get rid of her. How many minutes do you think she spent saying pre-trial January 6th defendants during this? Yep, it's a mouthful, and you have to say it over and over again. I think you should just go with traitors. That's quick. 2 syllables. Bam, bam. Get it done. What do you think we should call this segment? Should we just call it like Hypocrisy Watch when I'm taking down what they say on Fox News, or blood pressure pounder out of cider? I mean, it's really something. It's really something. I could go on about the fact that not giving medical care to inmates is a cost-cutting measure that prisons have been doing for quite some time, that the left has brought to the attention of any media that would cover it, that it doesn't seem to be something that people care that much about. Conditions for the incarcerated is not a right-wing cause, but all of a sudden it is. Just the twisting of the rhetoric here. I mean, they're just relying on people not to know anything. And if you watch Fox, you probably don't know anything. If you're going to school in Florida where they're destroying public education, you might not know any history, nothing. I was just doing a segment on guns. You could maybe you watched it right before this. And I mean, most people don't know that there used to be a ban on assault rifles, and we could do that again. We could. I'm Julianna Forlano. Thanks for watching me and these 2 fascists here on the Political Voices Network. I guess they have political voices too. Again, don't forget to leave a comment. I love reading your comments. Thank you. See you next time.
Republicans say they won't cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. But can honest, hard-working middle-class Americans really believe what these politicians say? Republicans said they wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. Here's what Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett said during their Senate confirmation hearings.
Roe v. Wade, it is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. A good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court.
Roe v. Wade. It's settled as a precedent of the Supreme Court.
Roe is not a super precedent, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
Well, we saw how that turned out. They played us for fools. Tell your elected officials to keep their hands off of our Social Security and health care benefits. Fool me once. Let Majority Rule was responsible for this message. LetMajorityRule.org is a project of the Marvin Lucas Super PAC, which is responsible for and paid for this ad and is not affiliated with or authorized by any political campaign or candidate or candidates committee.